כן, רבותיי, חג שמח, תזכו לשנים רבות. It gives us great honor and pleasure and kavod of welcoming my dear friend and colleague, Chacham Eliyahu Mansour Shelita, that is staying with us for this special night of Chanukah. Originally, when we planned this lecture, it was supposed to be this past Thursday evening. But then suddenly I get a text from the rabbi, Rabbi, Mehila, we have to switch it for Sunday night. Do you mind? And I answered him, how can I mind? Sunday night tonight is the holiest night of the entire week of Chanukah. No less than Yom Kippur, no less than Hoshana Rabbah, and I'm sure that the rabbi will tell us a lot of beautiful insight, the magnificent Kedusha, holiness and power that these 24 hours that started 2-3 hours ago carry all the way till tomorrow. So Be'ezat Hashem, I'm sure the Kahal will hear magnificent words of Torah. We'll take the opportunity to express our gratitude to the Goldberg family for graciously sponsoring tonight's lecture. La'ilun Nishmat, their beloved father, Gideon ben David alav shalom, as well as the dear friend Ozi ben Shoshana. May both neshamot have an aliyah in Gan Eden. At the end of the shi'ur, we are going to be organizing most likely a minyan for Arvit, for those who did not pray yet. And there is a beautiful Saudah Mitzvah already set up at the breakfast room at the end of the lecture. So I believe that Chacham, we're ready for you. Okay. The mic too? Beautiful. Thank you.
תזכו לשנים רבות, נעימות וטובות, חג שמח. It's a great privilege for me to be here tonight at the Safa Synagogue here in Aventura. It takes on added significance that your great rabbi, Rabbi Galamidi Yishmerehu Ha'ed, who clearly is one of my heroes. People come to me many times, they say, Rabbi Mansour, you work so hard. And I say, I don't work 10% of what Rabbi Galamidi does in one day. And he's really a great asset to this synagogue, of course, but really he's a proper role model for what the rabbinate is supposed to look like. He clearly did not choose to be a rabbi to look for any shortcuts or to make his life any easier. If anything, the rabbinate for this great rabbi is a yoke, although he loves every minute of it, as we know. But clearly he doesn't shy away from his responsibilities. And the blessings are in the proof is in the blessings of the synagogue. It's growing by leaps and bounds. It's going up and sideways in every which direction. And the pasuk will be fulfilled on this congregation. Ufarasta yama v'kedma safona v'negba v'nibrechu becha kol mishpachot ha'adama u'b'zar'echa. Amen. Amen. It's great to see the congregation, the men and the women that are here tonight. A beautiful rendition of the Mansour. I guess it's proper. Before a baseball game, they sing the national anthem. So before a class in the synagogue, I guess you could sing Mansour. There's nothing wrong with it. I want to congratulate the board of directors of this great synagogue, that they have it. It's being run like a well-oiled engine, machine. And Baruch Hashem, as I said, this is a model synagogue that all other synagogues in the world should learn from the Ba'alei Batim, from the classes that are offered, from the different services that are given, and from just the way it flows. It's just an easy flow, how it works. And that's because Baruch Hashem, the rabbi and the board, are putting a lot of energy into making that happen. So again, Eskuvi Ametz Lebavchem, Kolem Yahanim Hashem, Amen. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here tonight to reveal a great insight regarding the holiday of Chanukah, specifically the last night that we're in. The 8th night of Chanukah, which as the rabbi said is Keneged Kulam, is as great as all the days combined. The way this idea came to me is because one of the members back in Brooklyn asked me the following question. I'm embarrassed that I never thought of this question myself, but nonetheless, it piqued my curiosity when he asked it. So I'll tell you the question. There's a Gemara in Shabbat, page 21. That's the page that introduces to us the laws of Chanukah. So the structure of the Gemara is like this. First it says, there are certain wicks that are valid and there are certain wicks that are invalid for Chanukah. And then the Gemara says there's certain oils that are valid and certain oils that are invalid. Then the Gemara says, and what if the person who lights the menorah and then it goes out? So the Gemara has a big discussion. Do you have to relight it? Or is it okay? Kafta zakukla or kafta in zakukla? Then you turn the page. And the Gemara says, well, how many candles do you have to light? So the rabbis say, well, one opinion says one candle, then there's another opinion, there's a third opinion, then there's Bet Shammai, then there's Bet Hillel. Some say you light 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Some say you do 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's basically the laws of Chanukah spelled out. And after basically a page and a half of just laws, then the Gemara at the end, on the flip side, asks a very, very important question. And the question of the Gemara is, my Chanukah. What is Chanukah? And the Gemara goes to explain, oh yeah, good question. You know what Chanukah is? There was Greeks, there was Hashmonaim, they defiled the temple, they found the Pachshemen, they came in, and they used the oil that there was only enough for one night, and it ended up lasting for 8 nights, and they made a holiday. So the guy asks me, and it's a solid question, Rabbi, if you're writing a Gemara, wouldn't you start the Gemara by asking, my Chanukah, what's Chanukah? Tell me what it is. And after you explain to me what it is, then say, okay, now you know what it is, this is how you celebrate it. This wick, this oil, this amount of candles, in this order. Why would you tell me what is Chanukah after the fact that you gave me all the laws? It's seemingly out of order. This question I put a lot of thought into. And over the course of the next few minutes, we're going to take a detour, but I hope I'll remember to come back to answer this question. There's 4 exiles that the Jewish people have endured. The first exile was Babel, the Babylonians. It wasn't such a bad exile. It's true they destroyed the first temple. That was bad. But it wasn't so long. It only lasted 70 years. It's a short exile. After that, there was Parasu Madai. Parasu Madai, well, that was a bad one also, if you remember Haman. He intended to commit a genocide, to kill all the Jewish people, men, women, and children, in one day. But God foiled his plans, and instead of killing us, he got hung on a tree, him and his 10 sons. And we got saved from that exile. That's Parasu Madai, Hashverosh. The exile that we came to talk about tonight is Yavan, it's the Greeks. And Baruch Hashem, we survived the Greeks, although very narrowly we survived it, as you'll soon see. And then the exile that we're in now, which is the longest of all the exiles combined, that's called Galut Edom, or Galut Romi, or Galut Esav, whatever you want to call it. And it's almost 2,000 years, this exile. And clearly it is the most severe of them all. But tonight we came to talk about the exile that's called Yavan. Yavan, I guess we'll call it Greece. It's not the Greece of today, it's the old Greeks. And I was wondering, what sin did we do to deserve this exile of Galut Yavan? It had to be something we did wrong. I mean, God must have sent us the exile because of a sin. You don't get exiled because of a mitzvah. And I'm trying to search in my brain, what did we do wrong that God brought us the Greeks? I'll give you an example. The Gemara says in Megillah, they once asked the big rabbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Kabbalah, they said, Rabbi Shimon, What did the Jewish people do to deserve Haman? What was the sin that they deserved? Haman. So he said, good question. He said, do you know 100 years before Haman was around, there was a king called Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar built a monstrosity of an idol, like a monster of Avodah Zarah. And you know the Jewish people bowed down to that Avodah Zarah. They worshipped it. They bowed down to it at least. So the Shimon says, because they bowed down to that idol, God was patient for 100 years. But they never repented. And therefore Haman came and made his diabolical decree. So I said to myself, well, that means there was a reason why Paras Umadai came. We brought them upon ourselves. So I'm asking the question again. What is the root sin that brought upon us and activated the exile called Yavan? Why is it important to know? It's very important to know this. Because you have to know what Chanukah is coming to fix. You have to know what it is coming to rectify. You must know what we did wrong so we make sure that we don't do it again. So I searched the books. The answer to this question I found on this paper. It's a book that's called Resise Laila. It was written by a great philosopher, Kabbalist, by the name of Rav Tzadok HaKohen. He says something incredible. He says, you know when it all started? There was a king by the name of Talmai. Learn some history, it won't hurt you. There's a king called Talmai, he's one of the Greek kings. One day he called 70 rabbis to his palace. When they got to the palace, everybody gets a quill, everybody gets parchment, and everybody gets an inkwell. And he puts them in cubicles. And he tells them, I want you to translate the Torah into Greek. And then I'm going to collect them. And then I'm going to study it and read it. And the rabbis, they accepted this decree and challenge. Of course, it's a challenge. And they went into their cubicles and they actually translated the Torah into the Greek language. Now, as a side point, they did make some minor adjustments because they felt that Talmai, being a non-Jew, will not understand certain things. And the miracle, the Gemara says, is they made 13 adjustments, and each rabbi, not knowing what the other rabbi did, made the exact same 13 adjustments. So that was an incredible, miracle that happened. I'll give you an example if you want to hear one of the adjustments. You want to hear one of them? So one of the adjustments is that the Torah says that there's certain animals that are not kosher. One of the not kosher animals is arnevet. Arnevet is a rabbit. The problem is Talmai's wife, her name was Arnevet. Her name was Bunny. So if they're going to write in the Torah that Arnevet is not kosher, you're going to say, you're making fun of my wife? So therefore they had to change the word Arnevet and they put Sa'irat Raglayim. They made an adjustment on that. And they did it 12 other times. Fine. Now Tzadok HaKohen says, what those 70 rabbis did on that day was the greatest tragedy, was the greatest crime. And I'm scratching my head, crime? What's the crime? They translated the Torah into another language. What's so bad with that? What's so wrong with that? He says, and that is the beginning of all the problems. If I can quote you the Lashon of Resise Laila, and he says, Vathalat Shmad Yevanim, the beginning of the exile of the Greeks and their decrees, Haya al Yedeh Ha'atakat HaTorah Yevanit. It all started at that moment. In Latin, they call that event the Septuagint. It's a famous event. But you know what happened the day they translated the Torah into Greek? The Gemara says the sun did not rise for 3 days. The world was thrown into utter darkness. And it wasn't a solar eclipse. It was like the darkness in the times of Egypt. Pitch black. Choshek Hafenah. Because in the heavens, they felt that this was such a tragedy that the sun couldn't rise. For 72 hours, the world was thrown into darkness. As a matter of fact, if you look in the Shulchan Aruch, there's laws of tzaddikim. The laws of the tzaddikim are that there's certain days that tzaddikim, righteous people, fast. Besides the automatic fast of Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, but there's certain days during the year that tzaddikim fast. And Shulchan Aruch says if you're a tzaddik, you'll fast on these days. One of the days he writes in the Shulchan Aruch is on the 8th day of Tevet. Wow, now is Rosh Chodesh Tevet. Today was Rosh Chodesh Tevet. So it's next week. The 8th day of Tevet. So Shulchan Aruch says, why would people fast? He said, because that was the day that they translated the Torah into Greek, and that's the day that the sun didn't rise for 3 days, and people fast 2,000 years later, because we're still feeling the tremors of such a crime. And I'm asking myself, what in the world is the crime? Listen, I was outside in the lobby of your beautiful synagogue, and I noticed that you have the stone Humash. Now the stone Humash is an interpretation of the Bible into English. And as far as I know, when they printed the stone Humash, the sun rose that day. The world was not thrown into darkness. As a matter of fact, it was a sunny day. It was a beautiful day that day. So how did the Art Scroll get away with translating the Torah into English and nobody said anything? Nobody's fasting on the day that they translated it. But you have 70 tzaddikim rabbis, and they translated it into Greek. So, this is the beginning of the end. This is the tragedy. What's the difference? Ladies and gentlemen, I cannot overemphasize how important the philosophy that I'm going to try to convey to you tonight, if I'm able to do it, is Yata D'Shmaya. In order to understand what I'm going to tell you, you have to know what the great Rav Saadia Gaon said. Rav Saadia Gaon said, En Ummah zu Ummah Ela Betoroteha. He was talking about the Jewish nation. And he said, our nation is not a nation only because of our Torot. Because of our books. It is the books that we have that gives us nationhood. Interesting. He didn't say it's the land that gives us nationhood, although we love the land. And we pray for the welfare of the land 3 times a day. But keep in mind, our nation becomes a nation because of its books. And the proof of the pudding is, we were exiled out of our land for 2,000 years, and we still remained a nation. Try doing that with another country, exile them from their land, and see how long they'll last. They won't. Because it's not the land that made us a people, it is our books. En ummanutenu umma ela biglal toroteha. Now, what are these books that he's talking about? The Sidur? No. What book is he talking about? Books, he says, Toroteha. So you must know that on Har Sinai, God gave us the Torah. We received, well, I was going to say 2 books, but it's not true. We received 1 book and then 1 oral tradition. A book that wasn't written yet. It was given mouth to mouth. that book would be called Torah Sheba'al Peh. It's a Torah that's transmitted from rabbi to student. And then we got the book, the 5 books of Moses, the Bible. That's called Torah Shebichtav. That's the written book. Now the written book, which is written in God's handwriting or God's language, which is Lashon HaKodesh, Hebrew. It's God's language. That's the language God used to create the world. Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, the holy tongue. That's the language God wrote the Torah in. And in this Torah Shebichtav, it's written in a very, how shall I say, cryptic. Cryptic means it's coded. It's not written in a way where it's easily understood. Maybe some of you heard of Morse code. The Torah is written in a coded way, but it is the oral tradition that decodes it for us. So whenever you're studying the Bible, you need to have some rabbi that has that tradition to explain us what the text means. And ladies, if you ever took shorthand, you know, a secretary takes shorthand, but the man is talking for 45 minutes and the secretary has 1 page of notes. So how do you have 45 minutes on 1 paper? It's called shorthand. And then she goes back and looks at the words that she wrote, and from her signs that she writes, she's able to make now 45 minutes of notes. The Torah is written in shorthand. You want an example? I'll give you 2 examples if you don't mind. Everybody knows on Shabbat, for example, there's 39 forbidden melachot. There's 39 melachot, 39 forbidden activities. We learned it in school. Guess what? I'll put you up to a challenge. Go get the stone Chumash. You will not find in the 5 books of Moses 1 mention of the 39 melachot of Shabbat. It's not there. It's such an integral piece of information. It's not in the book. So how do you know it then? Because the oral tradition comes along and says that when the Bible writes the following 2 words, Ele HaDevarim, these are the words, Ele HaDevarim, these are the words that introduce Shabbat. So the Gemara says, Ele, Aleph, Lamed, He, that numerically equals 36. Devarim, that's plural. Well, the minimum plurality is 2. So that's 36 plus 2, that's 38. Well, close enough. No, the Gemara says, Ele devarim had devarim. There's an extra hair. 39. Wow. That means in the text itself is laden treasures and treasures of Hidushim. But without that tradition, you'll never know it. You want to hear another one? The Torah says, for example, you have to sit in a sukkah on Sukkot. Beautiful. That the Torah says. But guess what? How many walls does a sukkah have to be? Doesn't say in the Torah. There is no indication in the Torah how many walls a sukkah has to be. Doesn't say it. You think there's a pasuk that says, take 4 walls, put tzchach up. There's no pasuk like that. So how do we know how many walls? So the Gemara says, because when it mentions the word Sukkot, it's written without a vav. It's missing a vav. Usually Sukkot would have a vav in it. It's missing a vav. So the Gemara says, you see, you don't need 4 walls. It's missing. You can have 3 walls. Wow, from a missing letter already we know. You understand? This Torah that we have, the oral tradition takes every single missing letter, every single extra letter, every single dot, every single crown, and draws myriads of information, which is the basis of our religion. All of the oral tradition is drawn from the text. That King Talmai, on that day, when he came and wanted the Torah to be translated into Greek, he didn't do it because he wanted the Greek population now to have access to the Bible. His intention was to do away with the Lashon HaKodesh, with the original text the way it was written. Because once you now present a new Bible that's written in Greek, now you cannot derive from it all the oral tradition. If now this is the only book that's available, a Greek interpretation of the Torah, you won't know how many walls a sukkah has. You won't know 39 melachot on Shabbat, and you won't know anything. All you'll have is a superficial text, a new Bible, which means... What's the matter? Are the cameras stopped? The Yetzirah doesn't want this to be said. The connection? Of course, he's going to use all his tricks to stop. We're going to continue. Oh, it's not my face. It's okay, Rabbi?
Continue.
Rabbi says I should continue.
Go ahead.
So you see, what the Greeks were trying to do on that day, of the Septuagint of the 70 rabbis that came and translated, Baruch Haba. Their intention was to do away, not with the Bible, but they wanted to do away with the entire oral tradition. You know what we call that oral tradition? Maybe, ladies, you heard the word Gemara, Mishnah, Talmud. They wanted to do away with the interpretations. Now we're presenting a new Bible, and it's to be read as face value. And if it's read as face value, it's a new religion. On that day, the Greeks passed a decree and they went to war against the Jewish library. The library that our rabbis sit and sweat over every single day in order to understand what the Bible means, by presenting now a Greek translation of the Torah, they are now, by default, assaulting the entire tradition that's called Torah Sheba'al Peh. And if Rav Saadia Gaon is right, and he is, that our nation is only a nation because of its books, they took away one of our books. And once they take away one of our books, we are not a nation anymore. And now we become assimilated. Now the Bible became secularized. Because no more can the rabbis interpret this book. It's Greek. You're going to ask me, what's the difference between the stone Chumash? I'll tell you the difference. They kept the Hebrew on one side. They didn't touch the Hebrew. They said, this is the original text. Whoever wants to understand what this means, here's the English. But the Greek version, they got rid of all the Hebrew text. The only Bible that's available now is the Greek text. Hence, there's no more Torah Sheba'al Peh. Hence, there's no more tradition. Hence, the Jewish people now become secularized. It's an incredible exile. They weren't coming after us. They were coming after the book. It's the only exile like that. The Babylonians, they came after us. They killed us. Parasu Madai, Haman wanted to kill us. The Romans, the exile that we're in now, Hitler killed us, people. This is the only exile that they had no problem with Jews. The Jews were not under assault. They just didn't want the Jews to study the Torah. They were taking the book away from the Jew, which basically brings us to secularism, which ultimately brings us to assimilation. And the Ramban writes that in the times of the Greeks, 99% of the people became assimilated. 99%. The assimilation rate was 99%. The way the historians call that, they became Hellenized. The Hellenists. Hellenist means they married Goyim and Goyot, that's what it means. And there was only one traditional family left in the Jewish people. That traditional family was called the Hashmonaim. They were still fulfilling the traditions. And when they went to war, what were they fighting for? They were fighting to preserve authentic Judaism. They weren't fighting for their lives. Their lives weren't in danger. The Greeks weren't killing Jews. But they knew that if the Greeks will continue their ideology, there's not going to be anything left. So the rabbis went out in order to preserve the tradition. Now, how do I know all this? If you open up the Siddur says it black and white. The Siddur says, בימי מתתיה בן יוחנן כהן גדול, חשמונאי ובניו, כשעמדה מלכות יוון על שער עמך ישראל, when the Greeks came upon us and had the key words, their intention was לשכחם תורתך. Their intention was that we should forget the Torah. Not that the world should be bereft of Jews. No, let there be Jews in the world, no problem. But Jews without Torah. And Jews without Torah, you're not a nation anymore. Jews without Torah become assimilated. That's the facts. Go look at any community in the world today that does not have yeshivot, that does not have kollel, that does not have Talmud Torah. Those communities automatically assimilated. They became secularized. Only through the study of our great Torah are we able to preserve traditions and preserve Judaism for that matter. Anyway, it all started on that day. So what should the 70 rabbis have done on that day? What should they have done? The king told them to translate the Torah. You know what Rav Tzadok says they should have done? They should have died. They should have told Talmai, we're willing to give our lives up al Kiddush Hashem. We cannot secularize the Torah. It's not our Torah. We know you have a sinister plot. You're trying to take away our tradition. By you doing this, you'll take away Shabbat. You'll take away all the interpretations. You'll take away all the understandings. They should have said, Yahareg v'al Ya'avor, we're willing to die. But they didn't. But then he writes that when the Hashmonaim came to fight against the Greeks, the head of the family, his name was Elazar. It says when this fellow Elazar waged the war against the Greeks, he fought and he actually died. They got him. But he says he gave up his life. Elazar gave up his life in that war to push the Greeks away. So says Rav Tzadok HaKohen, why did Elazar risk his life? So he writes, and I quote, ואלעזר הכהן ראש המעתיקים התורה ליוונית. He was the head of the 70 rabbis that translated the Torah into Greek. And he regretted that he didn't give up his life. So he said, I should have given up my life then. Now I'm going to risk my life and die al Kiddush Hashem to push these secularists away in order to retrieve the Torah Sheba'al Peh, to bring it back to its original glory. That's why, as you know, on Purim, there's a mitzvah to have a meal, to have a seudah. Everybody has a seudah on Purim. But on Chanukah, there's no mitzvah to have a meal. I know you ladies saying, how come you didn't tell me that last week? We made seudot every single night. Now you tell us there's no mitzvah to make a meal. We had our kids over and our grandchildren over and parties and all that. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, there's really no obligation to eat on Chanukah. Whereas there is a definite obligation to eat on Purim. And what's the difference? Because on Purim they were coming after our bodies. So therefore the celebration is a body celebration, a physical celebration. But on Chanukah they weren't coming after our bodies. They were coming after the book. So how do you celebrate the book? Well, you know, in America today, what item symbolizes knowledge? Light. Anytime you see light, light represents wisdom. For example, we would say to somebody, that's a bright idea. Bright. Or if somebody says, that's illuminating. An illuminating idea. In the olden days, if you remember on the cartoons, when somebody had a good idea, a light bulb went on in their head. The light represents wisdom. When somebody says something, they say, that's brilliant. Brilliance also is light. So the way you commemorate this holiday is not by eating. You light candles. Because that's the closest thing we have in this planet that can represent knowledge. You light candles. Because this is what they were taking away from us. Now I did some math before I came here. And I counted how many candles do we light on Chanukah? Well, the first night 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, then 8. It's easy mathematics. You just have to add all those numbers up. Well, I did it with a calculator. And I got to 36. It's 36 candles. And I said to myself, could that be a coincidence, 36 candles? Why 36 candles? Got to be a magic number, 36 candles. Then I went to the library and I counted how many volumes are there in the Talmud. And guess what? There's 36 volumes. That's exactly what they were taking away from us. And therefore we light 36 candles corresponding to 36 volumes of the Torah Shebaal Peh, one per book. So on the first night we light one candle, Masechet Berachot. The next night, Masechet Shabbat, Masechet Eruvin. Because once you translate the Torah into Greek, those books have no meaning. Because you cannot explain tradition in a Greek book. El Devarim only explains when it's in Hebrew. But Sukkot can only be explained when it's in Hebrew. But once you secularize the book, therefore, it's a superficial book that does not lend itself to the tradition of Torah Shebaal Peh. 36 against 36. Well, then I noticed something else when I went to the bookshelf, that is. There was a great rabbi called Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. I want to tell you about this rabbi. Remember his name, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda, the president of the congregation. He noticed that this oral tradition that was given from father to son throughout the generations, he noticed that people did not have good memories anymore. And they were having a hard time retaining the tradition. I mean, today we have a hard time retaining 7 digits in a phone number. Could you imagine having to remember 36 volumes of information? So he said it's a problem because if we don't write this tradition down, it's going to be forgotten. So he made a landmark decision, and that's what it is. It's a landmark decision. And he decided to write the tradition down. And he wrote it, and he named the book Mishnah. It's his book, the book of Mishnah, which is the original tradition, which was oral. He wrote it in 6 volumes. Shisha Sidrei Mishnah. So I went to the Mishnah. You know, he wrote a Mishnah for every single Jewish holiday. You want to know the laws of Pesach? There's Mishnah Pesachim. You want to know the laws of Sukkot? There's Mishnah Sukkah. You want to know the laws of Rosh Hashanah? Mishnah Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur, Mishnah Yomah. Yom Tov, Mishnah Betzah. Chol HaMoed, Mishnah Moed Katan. Shavuot, Mishnayot Bikurim. Every single Shabbat, Mishnayot Shabbat. 24 chapters. Every holiday has a Mishnah. Even Purim. Even Purim, you wrote a Mishnah. It's called Mishnah Megillah. So before the holiday, I went to the bookshelf and I said, let me take out Mishnah Chanukah. And you know what I found, to my dismay? There is no Mishnayot Chanukah. There's no Mishnayot Chanukah. There's so many laws. Now, you're going to tell me, oh, because it's a rabbinical holiday. So is Purim. Purim has a Mishnah. Why didn't Chanukah get its Mishnah? There's a missing book on the shelf. You know what the explanation is? This Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he wanted everybody to remember what the fight was against. He wanted everybody to remember what they were trying to take away from us. You know, they say, and it's true, you don't appreciate something until it's missing. They say that regarding people's health. You know, when a person's feeling good, doesn't think twice about it. And then all of a sudden, when God forbid something starts to malfunction, then everybody starts to realize how much their health was valuable. It's got to be taken away. And the same thing when it comes to people, God forbid. You know, people are taken for granted. And then when do we realize that we took them for granted? When they're no longer here. And then after somebody passes away, we say, oh, we didn't visit them enough, and we didn't spend time enough, and we didn't appreciate them. It's always like that. It's got to be taken away before you appreciate it. So the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said, how am I going to get the Jewish people to appreciate what the Greeks were taking away from us? So he said, they're going to go to the bookshelf on Hanukkah, and they're going to see there's a book missing. Specifically, he did not write Mishnayot Chanukah, and then they're going to say, what is this? And now you say, you see, if it wasn't for the Hashmonaim and that family, we wouldn't have any of these books. So by not seeing Mishnayot Chanukah, it reminds us what they were attacking. I don't know if you understand the ramifications of it. I'm not coming here to talk about different sects of Judaism, but take, for example, all Jews are good, all Jews are you know, I'm not talking about the leaders, I'm talking about the Jews themselves. Could be they're misguided. But take the Reform, for example. The Reform have their temples. Now they drive to those temples on the Sabbath. They drive in the parking lot. They eat on Yom Kippur during the break. They play music on Shabbat in the temple. Men and women sit together. There's no mechitzah. Where did all that come from? Once you take away oral tradition, none of those things are written in the text. Nowhere in the text does it say you can't drive on Shabbat. Nowhere in the text does it say men and women can't sit together. Nowhere in the text does it say you can have an organ playing to the Hazan on Shabbat. None of that, all that comes from the oral tradition. So you take away the tradition, this is what Judaism looks like. But it doesn't end there. Because if you look at the people that are sitting in the seats, today, the majority of them are not even Jewish. Because once already you take away this religious interpretation that was given at Sinai, that's what Judaism starts to look like. Now, I'm not blaming the people. They were misguided. They weren't taught the proper way. And the leaders, yes, the leaders who knew what they were doing when they started this movement, well, they're going to have to pay a price one day. And that's what the Greeks were trying to do. And if it wasn't for the Hashmonaim, the whole Jewish nation would be that. assimilated. You cannot imagine the tragedy. I once saw a book from Rabbi Hutner, Alav Shalom. Rabbi Hutner was the Rosh Yeshiva of Chaim Berlin. He says that Galut Yavan is the worst of all the exiles. It's even worse than Haman. Haman was Hitler. Hitler was trying to take away bodies. Bodies, it's okay. We still have souls. But Yavan was taking away the soul of Klal Yisrael. That's our eternity. That's much worse. I cannot overemphasize the danger that we were in. So the Yehuda Nasi said, no Mishnayot for Chanukah. So you'll be reminded that that's the book they were going after. There's a custom on Chanukah. I'm giving my opinion now. I didn't confer with the great rabbi what his opinion on this is. And I know everybody has different opinions, so please, ask your local rabbi what he believes, but I'm telling you my opinion. This is one man's opinion. Take it with a grain of salt. There are certain traditions that are based in halakha, and then there's certain traditions that, although they're based in halakha, but over the course of time, they run amok. One of those traditions, I believe, is this tradition where people on Chanukah exchange gifts. Now I know there's a tradition on December 25th that they exchange gifts. I'm aware of that tradition. And I know they both come out in December time. But maybe I'm missing something. I haven't found yet in the Jewish law where it talks about exchanging gifts on Hanukkah, although on Purim it says it. On Purim it says it. Mishloach manot. Even on Pesach it says you're supposed to buy your wife a dress and give the kids candies and so. But what does it say on Hanukkah? It's brought down by a rabbi called Magen Avraham. He says the old tradition was in the old countries that they would give money.
Chanukah geld.
Chanukah geld, as the rabbi calls it. Geld is money in Arabic. They used to give this geld that the rabbi talks about. And who would they give this geld to? To the rabbis in the yeshiva. To the rabbis in the yeshiva. That was like a bonus.
Chanukah bonus.
A Chanukah bonus. The kids would come to school in an envelope and say,
He is the president.
Rabbi,
Chanukah bonus.
B'diuk, Chanukah bonus. And they would say, this is a gift from my father. And then the parents would give their children monies. And the reason why they would give them the monies was to incentivize them to learn better in the next semester. That was the source of the custom. You were paying the rabbis for the good job that they did, and you were paying the students monies. So I don't have a problem if a parent today gives a gift to a child and says, this is for all your hard work that you've been doing in the yeshiva, and now you have the winter months ahead of you. Let this be an incentive. I'm all for it. You should give your gifts every night then. But if exchanging gifts just becomes for no purpose, just for the purpose of giving gifts without a reason. Now, why did that custom happen? To exchange, not to exchange, to give gifts to the rabbis and the students, because that's what they were taking away, the Greeks. They were trying to do away with rabbinical interpretations. So therefore, in order to take a revenge against them, on this holiday, we fortify the yeshivas by giving them bonuses and fortify the students by giving them incentives. It's as simple as that. I'll go further now. You remember when we were at Har Sinai, you were all there. I remember some of you as well. We were all there at Har Sinai. Every single Jew that was born and was destined to be born, their souls were at Har Sinai. So you were there. God came down on that day and He said, I have the Torah, 1,000 pages. What is your opinion? At that point, we answered 2 words. We said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Let me explain to you what that means. If somebody comes with you with a document of 1,000 pages and tells you, listen, there's a lot of things in this document that you're going to be obligated. And it's going to be difficult, and it's binding, and if you don't follow it, there's punishments. So here's the 1,000. What's your opinion? What I would say? Give me 3 days to read it. Give me 3 days to read it. Let me read the document. And then I'll come back to you and say, I'm interested, I'm not interested. Especially you're telling me that it's going to oblige me and there's punishments and it's difficult. I'd like to read the pages. Well, the Jewish people came at Har Sinai and God came with 1,000 pages and said, listen, I have this book, what's your opinion? And what do we say? Where do we sign? God says, don't you want to read it first? We don't have to read it. You're giving it to us, we trust you. Where do we sign? They accepted like Obamacare. They signed it and then they read it. And then they read it after. L'havdil. You read it after, just sign it. But the point is, that's Na'aseh v'nishma. We took the book sight unseen. It's an incredible leap of faith. That's the way Jews accept the Torah. Na'aseh v'nishma. Well, guess what? The holiday of Chanukah, we're re-accepting upon ourselves the oral tradition. The tradition that the Greeks tried to take away from us. Like it says, the Shakeham Toratach. On Hanukkah, we say to God, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will accept the oral tradition. So now the rabbis come to write the Talmud. So they come along and say, these are the wicks that are kosher, these are the wicks that are not kosher. This is the oil that's kosher, this is the oil that's not kosher. What if the candles go out? How many do you have to light? It's giving all the laws. And then only after it gives us all the laws, what does the Gemara say? My Hanukkah. The Gemara writes it in the style of Na'aseh v'nishma. First it gives us all the laws. We don't even know what we're doing. What is this? Just don't ask questions. Take a wick, take an oil, light one. What is this about? Don't ask questions. Na'aseh v'nishma. After you give me all the laws, then the Gemara says, by the way, now you signed, now you're doing all these things, now we'll tell you what Hanukkah is. The Torah specifically, the Gemara wrote it in that style because on Hanukkah we accept upon ourselves this age-old tradition. And now the good news. Now that you know what the battle was, and now you know what the Hashmonaim did, now I have good news for you. Good news is, we have a tradition. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh writes it, that one of the telltale signs before Mashiach comes, there'll be a resurgence in the study of the oral tradition. So when you start to see people studying Mishnah and Gemara, and you start to see it becoming prevalent, start ironing your dresses, ladies, because you know Mashiach is almost here. Whenever there's a resurgence in the Torah Sheba'al Peh, that already activates the Mashiach. As the Gemara says, En Yisrael Nig'alin Ela B'Torah. So there was a great rabbi. His name was Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld. They went to Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld and they said, the Gemara says that the Jews will be redeemed in the merit of Torah. He said, it's true. But the prophet did not say that. He said, well, what did the prophet say? Well, the prophet says, Sion b'mishpat tipadeh. Zion will be redeemed in justice. V'shaveha and those that are in captivity, b'staka, in charity. So what do you mean? It doesn't say, the prophet doesn't say one word about Torah. He doesn't say one word about the study of Talmud. He talks about Zion being redeemed in justice and its captives will be redeemed in charity. So he said, aha. If you take the words Sion b'mishpat tepadeh and take the numerical value of those letters, it equals exactly the numerical value of the two words Talmud Yerushalmi. And if you take the two words Veshaveha Bistaka, those two words equal exactly the words Talmud Babli. That's what the prophet meant. That Zion will be redeemed. Zion is Jerusalem in the merit of Talmud Yerushalmi. And Veshaveh, those in captivity, is Talmud Babli. It means the redemption is going to be in the merit of the study of the Talmudim. En ummatenu umma ella betoroteha, like Rav Sa'adiyah said. What's the good news? The good news is today, Baruch Hashem, I remember when I was young, we have a synagogue in New York called Sha'arei Sion. It's still around. On Ocean Parkway. I don't pray there anymore. I have my own synagogue. But when I was young, I prayed there. It's the synagogue of my grandfather as well. And you'd figure everybody heard of Sha'arei Sion, it's a prestigious synagogue. They had a library. Shul has to have a library. You know where the library was? On the 4th floor. You had to walk all the way up. You know, when you put a library on the 4th floor, that's like in Macy's, they put the return department on the 9th floor. Because no one's going to go there to return something. It's not worth it to go all the way up to the 9th floor to return it, leave it. So when you put the library on the 4th floor, that means nobody's really using the library, so we could put it on the 4th floor. But I wanted to see the library. Because I loved books. When I was young, I still love books. So I went up to the 4th floor of Sha'arei Sion, and the library is locked. A Bukana library is locked. There's no, you got to speak to the Shamosh. Who's the Shamosh? Shalom. Shalom? Where's Shalom? He won't be here till Mincha. So now nobody can get any books. Shalom comes on his bicycle from Mincha to Shalom. Shalom Ozeri, that's Rabbi Ozeri's uncle. Shalom Ozeri. He's an old Yemenite guy. Shalom, could you open up the library? What do you want from the library? What do you want? Here's a Siddur, here's a Chumash. Here's a Siddur, here's a Chumash. What else could you want? I don't know. I don't know what a library is. I like to see what the library is. He opens the library, and I look at the books, and the books are burnt. The books are burnt. Every book you open up, they're all charred. You bang the table, smoke, dust. I went to my grandfather, Allah Shalom. I said, Grandpa, what is this? He said, that was Hakam Matlub Abadi's library. I said, what happened to it? There was a fire in Sha'arei Sion, burnt his library. I said, Grandpa, nobody thought to replace the library? That's what Sha'arei Sion was. You had a library, it burnt, they locked it, and it was the Smithsonian. You know, you looked at it, you said, Zek al-Hurban, and that's it. Nobody cared. Now, if you tell me when I was a kid then in Sha'arei Sion, Rabbi Eli, is Mashiach going to come? I said, how can Mashiach come? There's no library in Sha'arei Sion. It's Eshes v'Anochi Afar v'Efer. We have a community that's just reading Siddur and Chumash. There's no Talmud. The Talmud in Sha'arei Sion is burnt. How are you going to have Mashiach? That's what the Greeks were doing. Pray all you want from a Siddur and a Chumash, but who has the interpretations? It's in Chamat Lub's burnt library. Go get the key. The key's not going to help you. Go today to Sha'arei Sion. As an example. Today the library is not on the 4th floor anymore. The library today has its own floor. no less than 10,000 books in the library. 100 sets of the Talmud. Tables, lights, fresh. That's today what's going on in the world today. No more are the libraries burnt, archaic. We built a synagogue in Deal over the summer, Lawrence Avenue Synagogue. The committee of that synagogue came to me and said, we have an unlimited budget for books. They didn't talk about it like that in our community 50 years ago. We want to have every book in the Talmud, every book from the Hakamim, from Maimonides and down. So the scholars can come and study and they can understand the religion. And the Greeks are turning over in their graves. Because when I was young, the Greeks were laughing. They said, ha ha ha, we beat these people. Let them pray from Siddurim all day long. As long as they don't follow the tradition, they'll become like Chas v'Shalom, the Hellenists. And today, I'm looking at Abe Franco. Bet Torah does not have one of the most beautiful libraries in the community today. They built a special building that they can have scholars come and study Torah and learn the oral tradition. There's not a shul that doesn't have a library today. If you don't have a library, you don't count. Torah centers, learning. And your great rabbi gave me good news the other day. I'm very happy. This synagogue over here clearly is one of the most prestigious synagogues that we have. But we need now to create an area where we have good libraries with good books, and we need to bring young scholars that can come along and give us the proper interpretations of our Torah. I know there's a word that rubs some of us wrong. It rubs me wrong sometimes too, the word kolel. Oh, when we hear the word kolel, it evokes all sorts of funny type of emotions. That's why I don't use that word. When somebody tells me, what do you do, Rabbi Mansour, all day long? I said, I'm involved in research. Oh, wow, that's impressive. You do research? Where do you research? I turned the laboratory. Wow, you sit in the laboratory all day long? Yeah, me and some other scholars. What do you think a kollel is? It's a bunch of researchers that are doing research. You don't like the word Bet Midrash? Call it a laboratory. I'm not interested in the semantics. But what I'm interested is in to preserve the tradition. And this synagogue, in my opinion, has graduated to that level where now it's done. We have a mikveh, Baruch Hashem. We have the synagogue flourishing in all aesthetic ways. We have a beautiful library that was built, but I'm sure we can use more books. Now we need scholars. Because if you don't have these scholars that can read these books, so then what's going to help us? That's the greatest commitment we can make on the 8th night of Chanukah. If you really wanted to take a revenge against the Greeks, well, eating a jelly donut is not going to take a revenge against the Greeks. The Greeks couldn't care less how many potato pancakes you eat and how many times you spin a dreidel. That's not going to help anybody. I'm not going against those traditions. Eat jelly donuts, eat potato pancakes, put applesauce, whatever the tradition is. But that's not going to preserve Judaism. Latkes cannot preserve Judaism. What's going to preserve it is going back to the study of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Their intention was l'shakeham Toratach. And the victors of that war were the Hashmonaim, and the Sidur calls them Oskeh Toratecha. Those that were toiling in the Torah. And let us come tonight as a great community and say to God, Na'aseh v'nishma. Let us accept upon ourselves to build a new research center here in the synagogue in Aventura. Let us bring some scholars. It's going to cost money. Of course it's going to cost money. But it's the best money spent. We spend money on insurance. A person has a car, he has insurance. A person has a house, he has all sorts of insurances. A lady has a fur coat, she has an insurance. People make a bet in a casino, they take insurance on a bet. But when it comes to preserving Judaism, that's not worth paying an insurance, to pay a premium to guarantee Judaism. What would we pay that we guarantee Judaism prepare? We just got to get to the finish line. Mashiach's finish line is right here. We just have to push Judaism a few more feet to get to the finish line. This is the test that we have, but we're in a good position because today we understand it. As I said, we don't have burnt libraries anymore that we have no access to. And then, Be'ezat Hashem, the words of Rav Chaim Sonnenfeld will come true. Sion b'mishpat tepade is Talmud Yerushalmi, v'shaveh b'tzedakah is Talmud Bavli. And when we return to the Talmudim, no longer is the Torah translated into Greek. The Torah is preserved in its original text, in Lashon HaKodesh. I'm not against the translation, but don't touch the original. Because as long as we have the original, we can learn all the laws of Shabbat and the Hagim and everything else in between. My prayer is that Be'ezat Hashem, as this synagogue reaches the next level of growth, just like you have succeeded at every other stage of your development, not only have you succeeded, you've exceeded expectations. This synagogue, in every area of its growth, has become the benchmark of how it's supposed to be done. And I'm very confident that now, as this synagogue becomes a leader in the preservation of Torah Sheba'al Peh, let us make this commitment on the 8th night of Chanukah, which the rabbi is right. I know some of you said, isn't the rabbi going to tell us some sigulot? Well, on the 8th night of Chanukah, it's true, you could pray for whatever you want, especially fertility. If there's Chas v'Shalom couples that need to have children, the Zohar HaKadosh says on the 8th night of Chanukah, there's something in the night, in the mazalot, for fertility. There's something in the night for parnasah. But all those are beautiful, those are physical things. But what is it to have fertility in 100 children if we cannot guarantee that they're going to be Jewish in 50 years? Then fertility is not an asset, fertility becomes a liability. So it's not enough to pray for fertility that we have children. The synagogue must create the infrastructure that will guarantee that those children that will be born as a result of Zot Chanukah, Be'ezat Hashem, will remain Jewish. And that's what it says in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, and I conclude. That in every generation they came after us. Sometimes after our body, and in this case, after our book. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu in every generation saves us. And this is the order of the day and the calling of our time. En Yisrael nig'alim ela b'zchut Torah. And Be'ezat Hashem will be fulfilled on us the pasuk. Adonai hafes למען צדקו יגדיל תורה ויאדיר. וכמו שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם, כך יעשה לנו ניסים בזמן הזה. אמן ואמן.